Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Margaret Fisher, and I am one of the organizers of our new Fairfax Tree Rescuers PRISM. Today we're going to talk about what volunteers can do to help survey for invasive plants. Just to give you a little bit of background, PRISM stands for Partnership for Regional Invasive Species Management. This is a thing that is organized around the country in many different states of collaborations, usually of government agencies along with non-governmental organizations to work on one invasive or another, whether it's plants or animals or whatever. And there are two other prisms in Virginia right now. There's a Blue Ridge Prism, which has done a lot of wonderful things, including extremely good educational material. And there's the National Capital Prism, which focuses on early detection and rapid response. So what our prism is going to do is focus specifically on trying to actually get the job done in Fairfax, which would include all its jurisdictions and the city of Falls Church, to address the problem on all types of land, not just parks, but private and commercial and all land types. And so in order to do that, we have to ask the question, is this even possible? What will it take for our community to actually save its trees and get rid of at least the worst of the invasives? That's the goal, and that's the question we have to ask. So the answers so far are we need a lot of things, which of course means we need a lot of volunteers. We need to increase public awareness exponentially over what we've been able to achieve so far. We need more volunteer work. We need more trained professionals doing the job. We need money. We as a community, I should say, needs money for this. We need to reduce the number of invasive species that are being planted, et cetera. We need leaders in every community to look on that scale. We're looking on a county-wide scale, but we're going to need people to look on a local scale to see what needs to be done in their communities. We need to figure out what to do on the roadsides. So we will need, we have teams. There's a dozen or so of us working on this, divided into teams to address these various issues. And we'll need a lot more people to help with that work. But today what we're going to talk about is the survey work. The purpose of that is for us to, as a community, assess how bad the problem is, where the problems are bad, what kind of species we have, and then to monitor over time to see whether we're actually accomplishing anything. So we are happy to put to work volunteers who actually know nothing about invasive plants so far. Then for people who have more experience, there's some surveys that they would be able to do that a rank beginner couldn't do. And then for people who have a lot of experience, there's detailed survey work that needs to be done, as well as the possibility of joining the National Capital PRISM in their project for early detection. So what can you do just if you're starting out in this adventure? What can you do just at home? So one thing is you can start to learn about the invasive plants that are in your own, where you live, your neighborhood, your own home. An easy way to do that is just to walk around with an app on your mobile phone for the plant identification and see what you see. A popular one is one shown here is called Picture This. It's pretty good. No app is perfect for this, so take everything with a grain of salt, but it's pretty good. And when you dial down, you get to this map that shows whether it's considered invasive. Now, you may notice that it doesn't show Virginia on this little map, And yet Chinese privet is definitely invasive in Virginia. But I think they're just marking the ones where maybe they've been banned by law or something. There's some specific way that they decide where to map these things. But probably if it's invasive in Virginia, there's a good chance that it will show up on this map in some part of the country. You can also take plants to the master gardeners to get help with identification, or send them pictures. You can go on websites, and that would include the website that we'll be building for the Fairfax Tree Rescuers PRISM. There are Facebook groups where you can post pictures and get advice. And you can also get personalized advice from ambassadors of the Northern Virginia Bird Alliance Wildlife Sanctuary Program. If you want to create habitat on your own property and you need advice, you can invite one of them to come and walk the property with you and strategize, and they will point out invasive plants. It's very fun, and certainly encourage anyone who's serious about using their property for wildlife to invite one of those volunteers. Now, then, to help the community as a whole, you can also use an app to identify and pinpoint invasive species that are new to an area. The concept here is that many invasive species are so prevalent at this point that we're never going to get rid of them. All we can do is try and control them. Just like when you're gardening and you weed your garden, you're not going to expect that next year you're going to come back and you won't have to weed, right? They will come back because they're just too prevalent. But when something first comes into an area, it's not prevalent yet. And you might actually be able to eradicate it. You should be able to eradicate it if you jump on it right away. So what the National Capital PRISM does is scan the iNaturalist app, looking for people who have identified certain species that are known not to be yet prevalent here. And then if they see that you have observed one, at least if it's in public areas, I'm not sure about private areas, they will get volunteers out to the area and try and get rid of it. But that's a very valuable service. In this picture, this is iNaturalist, a wonderful app. Also, nothing's perfect. It will never be 100% correct, but it's pretty good at identifying most invasive species, at least if you give it a clear enough picture. And then after you identify it with the computer, then other human beings, especially if it's one of these species, other human beings will come in and review it and tell you whether your identification was right. But this particular picture was, I guess, I'm not sure about this particular picture, but just a week or so ago, I was walking in Berkeley Park, and I guess I tend to look at the ground being a plant person, and what do you know, there was some wavy leaf, just a tiny little patch. So I took a picture and put it up here, and I very quickly got a message from the National Capital PRISM team asking about that. And by the way, I pulled up the wavy leaf grass while I was at it. Okay, so another thing that you can do if you're a beginner or not a beginner, anyone can do, is to go around your neighborhood or other neighborhoods and count how many trees are at risk from invasive vines. This is really easy work. Children do it. It's simple enough because most people know what English ivy looks like. And if it's crawling way up a tree, then we count it. In residential areas, we also have other invasive vines on trees that will put them at risk. And if it looks like whatever it is getting way up in the canopy or wrapped around and choking a tree, then we count that tree. So literally you're walking along and going 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I see 20 trees in this block, and you report it. Then we put it on the map. So as you can see, a lot of people have been doing this work over the last 4 years, I think it is. But we have huge gaps where nobody yet has done the work. So please look at the map. And if you're going to be in, if it's your area, your neighborhood, or if you're going to be in a neighborhood where it hasn't been counted yet, it would be great if you could do that. Now, the other part is that while we're walking around in these residential areas, if we see a tree at risk, we drop off a door hanger to let the homeowner know in the hopes that they will take care of the problem. And then another thing that you can do if you don't yet know much about invasive plants is that you can map wisteria. So wisteria blooms in April. It is one of the most devastating invasive vines. It's just horrible how it snaps the tops off trees and pulls them down and chokes them, and it's dreadful. And it's not easy to get rid of, that's for sure. So in April, when it's in bloom, you can see it literally a quarter mile away if you're like driving along, because the flowers. And so the other nice thing about wisteria from our standpoint of trying to assess invasives in Fairfax County is that there's just actually not that much of it compared to most invasive vines. Another thing, by the way, that we don't have that much of yet is kudzu. So please be keeping your eye out for kudzus. We really ought to jump on kudzu whenever we can. But wisteria, there are, you can see on this map what we did just this spring with basically no notice. Now, 95% of these little dots were just me driving around. It was very simple to do this mapping. But I tried to be relatively thorough, and so I'm going to guess that maybe of these 67 observations, there may be maybe 3 or 4 times that many total out there, and that's not that many for a county of 1 million people. So I think it's at least possible that we can map every infestation, and then we can follow that over the years. So if 5 years from now, we're looking at our wisteria map and we have half as many, then we're going to know that actually our community has gotten it together and is addressing the invasive problem. Now, if you do know something more about the identification of invasive plants, not necessarily every invasive plant, but definitely the more common ones, such as multiflora rose or autumn olive, or Japanese barberry, lesser celandine, that kind of thing. Then, in addition to any of the other surveys, it would be wonderful if you might go out and start mapping the really bad infestations in our parks. If you want to do this in other areas, that would be great too. But our hope is that we can help the various park services find where all their really bad infestations are. When you think about Fairfax County Park Authority, there are 420 or so parks, the Fairfax County Park Authority. And some of those parks are gigantic. They're just essentially the entire stream valley. There are, maybe 10 people or something working in natural resources in Fairfax County Park Authority. I don't know the exact number, but it's a small number who are working on invasives and for the Park Authority. And they can't possibly know what's going on in the middle of a stream valley, somewhere in the county. We have to be the eyes and ears for the county. And so what we're hoping people will do is start walking through parks methodically, looking to see if you see any of these really bad infestations, whether it's vines smothering a whole bunch of trees, or just multiflora rose that's so dense you can't even walk into an area. Lesser celandine that's taken over the whole valley floor. That kind of really bad infestation, and map it. And I'll show you an example of how we do that mapping. And then also, while you're at it, map the other places that didn't have the severe infestations, just so that we know it's been done. And in the end, Hopefully all those parks will get mapped over the next couple of years maybe. And we'll have a baseline and it'll help us know, it'll help us know how to help the park authority with their work. And also gives an opportunity to monitor over time, but mostly to help with planning. And then for people who know a great deal of detail about invasive plant identification and are planning to help manage a specific area, like maybe a specific park, invasive management area, something like that, an HOA common land. Then for those people, if it's useful to you, this is really optional, you can map out using this program, IMAP Invasives. You can map out what you have in that area and where the worst infestations are. You can also map out what's been treated, and you can map it again to see progress. It's pretty cool, and it is a tool that is currently being used all over the United States, well, not all over, but in all these areas in the United States, as well as in Canada, by mostly by state agencies or consortiums of state agencies along with non-governmental organizations. So that's who started this whole project for mapping. This whole software was led by NatureServe, which is a nonprofit, in collaboration with various organizations like that. So they Virginia is not yet an official member of the IMAP invasives community, but very kindly they have allowed us here in Fairfax with our project to use this for mapping. There's a mobile app for this, and then there's the web version. The web version is where you start. You want to get yourself an account and start practicing at home or just anywhere. I mean, you can just like do a fake survey from your computer, from your house, and check it out. And also, it's actually easier than the mobile app. The mobile app is simple enough, but it's hard being there with a little mobile app when you have other things you're trying to do and looking at this tiny screen. It's just basically simpler to do it online. And I mean, on the web. And you have to use the web anyway to set up your account. So that's the first thing. You would go to the IMAP invasives and create an account. And then there are some steps that you need to take to make this usable for our PRISM. Right. So first of all, you need to request to join Fairfax Tree Rescuers. That will allow us to see your maps and use the data, and also make edits if needed to put in more data. If you forget to do this, if you don't do it, we will never know what you've done. So you can use the map for your own purposes, but if you want to do it to help the community, please be sure and put in your organization. And so you select Virginia as your jurisdiction, and you select Fairfax Tree Rescuers as your organization. And then the next thing you do is you open up the map and you zoom down to wherever you're trying to map. And you can change the base map from this to a satellite view. And that sometimes makes it easier to do your mapping. I actually am going to skip this right now because I'm going to actually show you online in real time, but hopefully this will work. So I'm going to escape out of here. Okay, all right. Now I hope that you are seeing the map again. I can't see you guys, so could someone please speak up and tell me if you're seeing the map?
Yep.
Yes, thank you. Okay, all right. So what you do with IMAP, called IMAP to its friends, is the first thing you do is you zoom down and find your location. So I'm going to zoom down to Chapel Road Park in Clifton, where I'm the invasive management area coordinator. And now this is the only annoying part of this program, and that is that it like all the such maps that I've ever seen, these interactive maps, it takes a long time to load once you zoom in, like a minute. So while we're waiting for that to cooperate, I'll just mention that the other jobs that I mentioned at the beginning, we would love if people would sign up for those things. But as soon as we get our, oh, here it is, that wasn't so bad. As soon as we get our website up and running, if you signed up to help with surveys to get tonight's link, thank you. And if you decide that you'd like to help with other things, you can go back and fill out the survey again and put other things in there that you'd enjoy doing. In particular, we're hoping to have people in every community to help, on a local level, as I mentioned before. And also in particular, we really would love it if people could help with outreach to corporations, because where's that money going to come from? We're hoping to engage the business community to adopt parks for invasive species management. Okay, so back to this, the mapping. All right, so I want to map out this area just north of the creek. This is an area that I haven't been able to do detailed surveys of yet. I've been in there a couple times, but the only access is wading across the creek or going through a neighbor's property. So I'm going to make a little map. I'm going to say create record. Click on create record here, and I'm going to say presence. Now I want to, I could just drop a point, but if there was just like one thing in there that I wanted to mark, but normally for surveys, most of the time, we're going to be drawing a polygon. Okay. Click on polygon, and then I'm going to map out the rest of the park that hasn't already been included in the map. Now, you may not be able to see it very well because the lines are so faint, but on this version, which is the topographic map, there are property lines. And so that's very helpful when drawing maps. You don't get that from the mobile app, but you do get it from the web version. So that's good, but on the other hand, it doesn't show you the vegetation. Sometimes it's more helpful to go up here where it says change base maps and go to the satellite view instead. And yeah, that's a whole lot more clear. I can see where the trees are, there aren't trees, etc. But for now, we'll go back to topographic and we're going to map the polygon of the park. There we go, and just click along the property line in this case. Exact as we can without going crazy. And then we'll close the loop. Click on that, and then aha! Now we have the map. It is red because it has not yet been confirmed by an administrator. Once it's been confirmed, then it's green. So then we go to next, and we're going to put in the species. Well, in this case, I happen to know, because I've been in there, I can see it across the creek, that this place is half of it or more is completely covered by autumn olive. So I'm going to choose autumn olive. I just start typing T, and there it is. Click on. And then I'm going to help out the project by indicating what kind of land it is, who owns the land. So in this case, it's Fairfax County Park Authority. And also, because I am indicating that this area has really, really bad infestation, I'm going to type in severe shrub infestation. Autumn olives look like trees, but they're actually technically shrubs. And that will allow us later, or yourself if you want to filter all the observations in Fairfax County and find all the severe shrub infestations or all the county Fairfax County Park Authority properties. And I'm going to add a photo. Let's see. Yeah. Actually, a photo of that area, demonstration purposes. And then ideally, I would have added more photos to make it easier for the reviewer to be able to know that it's the correct, that the identification is correct. After that, there are only two things that are needed. There are many other things that you could enter in here, but only two that are needed for the PRISM. One is percent cover, and the next is distribution. And then once we say percent cover, we know, the computer will know that this is 3 acres. And if we said that it was 50% coverage, then the computer will know that we have 1.5 acres of autumn olive, and it can add them all up for the county. I happen to know that maybe only half of the area is completely covered by autumn olive, and then there's some scattered around. So I'm going to say it's between 51 and 75%. This is all very rough. Now, if somehow I actually knew exactly what the percentage was, I could type it in here. I could say it's 75, 73 or whatever, instead of just using the drop down. But that's going to be unusual. Generally, you're not going to know that. So we'll just use the drop down. And then finally, distribution. Not a single plant. It's not sparse. It is dense. It's not a monoculture. There's other stuff there. It's not linearly scattered like along a road. So dense plant. That's dense plants. And then we go next. And we can see what we've done. And we say complete. That's it. So that wasn't so hard, right? And it's fun. You can, we'll get to the mobile app in a second, which is also relatively easy, but not as easy as this. This is the easiest way to go. Now, let's say that I've done this and I say, oh my gosh, oh no, I forgot something. Really, I wanted to add a comment, or I wanted to say, no, it wasn't autumn olive, it was something else. So you go back to the map and you find the spot and you click on it. Then you wait a little bit and hope that it's behaving itself, because it'll pop up a place where you can see the details and then edit them. Doesn't do it now, I will be very disappointed, but it should. It just takes a while. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that to behave, I'll just point out that this is a long-term project. We're serious about it. So don't feel like you have to just do this summer and get it all done this summer. No, you can take time, but it would be lovely if we could actually get the job done. There are 23,000 acres of land just in Fairfax County Park Authority. We have, I don't know, 80 people now signed up. So what does that make it? 80 into 23, that's how many acres we have a piece to cover. No, we'll try and recruit more volunteers. But you know, whenever you have time to do some of these surveys, it would be tremendously helpful if you could actually do that. Yeah. Why it's not cooperating, I don't know. Luckily, there's actually another way to get at it to do the editing.
Margaret, maybe you have to click off that summary box on the far left.
Maybe so. I don't think so. I'll try. Let's see. Ah, you were absolutely right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so there I am. You go down here to where it says details, click on that, and there you have all the information that you put in. If you decided that this was just a test, so I'm going to delete it, that's how you do that. Or if you realize that you drew the map incorrectly, probably have to delete it and start over. I tried just editing the map. It's, you know, redrawing the polygon, but I had trouble with that. So you can try it, but I think basically start over if you need a new map. But anything else you can change by clicking on edit. And it allows you to, it brings you back to all the fields that you filled in before, along with some other fields. You can add another photo or change the photo. You can do the percent coverage, the distribution, these things that we had to have. And you can put in those tags, more tags. This is particularly relevant if you had done the survey originally from a mobile device, because that one, the mobile device only seems to allow you to put in one of these tags. And if you want to put a second one in or a third one in, to come here online with there. And then even beyond that, I don't know if you probably ever want any of this, but if you click here to, this is view more information, it has even more things that you can, details, even more stuff that you can put in here. I think a lot of this is used by contractors, maybe people doing public surveys and stuff like that. Okay, so right, so that's it. And now I'm gonna delete it because it was actually just a test. All right. Now we're gonna go back to the presentation.
Margaret, there is a quick question in the chat. Is it only to use IMAP on parks? Because Ann Brosnan lives in Lake Barcroft, which is common community areas, but they're not public.
No, you can use it for anything you like. We have these 3 surveys for IMAP that we want to be methodical about. So those would be the wisteria surveys, that would be private or public land. We have this survey every park, which is just meant for the parks. And we have detailed surveys for management purposes, which are, you know, optional, but if you are doing it, we have laid out what we think is probably the best way to do it. But then if you're looking at common land and you want to do any of this there, it's totally, that's great. Go right ahead. Just probably.
So in other words, they could create one that has a keyword like Lake Barcroft, and then they can always therefore keep track of what's where in Lake Barcroft if people say in Lake Barcroft
Yeah,
have a blitz, do
in
it.
that case, they would call it an HOA common land project. And they have a project for that. And the way they would find Lake Barcroft is just zooming in the map to that area. And more points for that. Okay, let's see. Okay, and then afterwards, we can run various reports. So this is an example of one of the kinds of the reports that can be run. See here, there were 67 observations of wisteria, Chinese wisteria, three of Japanese. By the way, with the wisteria, you don't have to know whether it's Japanese or Chinese. The difference, as far as I can tell, is no difference. So if you don't know which it is, which you probably won't, we call it Chinese wisteria. Okay, now just to mention the mobile app. There is a program that is not just for IMAP, called Survey 123, but IMAP uses it for its mobile app. The way you use it is first you have to have gone online on the web version, created your account, gotten yourself a person ID to fill in this blank, and you open it up, and we're going to send you all the detailed instructions. I'm just showing you through generally how it's used, not any of the details. This won't be enough for you to actually do the work. And you don't forget that you have to say that you're with the Fairfax Tree Rescuers, which is what that code is. And then you're going to create your polygon or point. And then you're going to click on Presence Records. You're going to put in the species name. There's one exception, which I'm not going to get into right now. When we're doing these things, we're only going to do one species at a time. The app and the online version have an option for you to put in several species in one location, but with one exception, which I won't get into, we definitely don't recommend it. It's difficult. It's easy to lose track of what you're doing, and it might mess with the data display later. So put in one species, take your pictures, and say what the distribution is, say what the percent coverage is, and you're done. That's how the mobile app works, and that's the end of my little presentation. So I'll stop sharing, and thank you very much. Have you other questions? No, that was easy.
Stephanie Wright has a question. Do you create separate files for each different species?
Yes. Yeah. Separate file for each species. And the exception will be if you're one of those people doing a detailed survey of your park or common land or whatever, it would be useful and much faster if you could just document all the species, all the invasive species in that park in one survey. You can do that quite quickly, and that way, you know, you've listed the 15 species that you have there, and you do that just once. The rest of the time, everything else will be one species at a time, drawing the little polygons or putting in the points.
There's a couple more questions. Jack Person asks, how does Falls Church fit in?
Falls Church, we're including Falls Church. Why? Because, yes, no reason. We're including Falls Church. You're all welcome.
And Susan Lom says, is asking, are we just doing wisteria or mapping others as well?
Okay, so in the parks, we want all the severe infestations. What, you know, that there are, and we want the wisteria on wherever it is in Fairfax, counting Falls Church, and everywhere else. If you think it would be useful in any way, go right ahead. But it's not something we're trying to do methodically. There's just no way we can map the entire county, you know, methodically. We can't get it all, but, you know, we would hope that we can get, a lot of parks, as many parks as possible. Any park that you want to save, that's a park that we should be trying to map.
And a couple more questions. Will there be a follow-up meeting for people in each section of knowledge?
What I'm gonna suggest is that, you, try it out. We're gonna send out the instructions, some more detail than what I just did. I think there'll be enough to get you through, but you probably will have questions and we might need to amend the instructions in some way. So let's see how that goes before we think about necessarily doing this in, you know, as a group. But possibly, yes, if people find that it's just not as clear as it needs to be, or they want to do it kind of like together with other people, then we could organize that kind of Zoom. So you guys need to let me know what you're finding and what you need.
So I have to do this verbally. I can't do it on there. So when you go into the park and there's numbers of different species,
Mm.
am I just supposed to focus on one? Because it could be that it's a lot of infestation, but it's not one plant type of plant that's the infestation. So how do you deal with that?
Excellent, thank you. If you know enough about plants to be able to say what the most dominant species is, just do one. You're just going to do one for these severe infestation surveys, and use that plant. And then you can just say what the other plants are in the comment section. Type it out if you know what they are. If you don't know what it is because you're not experienced enough yet, just learning, or if you're viewing it from afar, and no matter how expert you are, you can't identify it, and that happens pretty often actually, then there is on the web version an option called a fake species. That's what you use for this. And you're simultaneously marking this with the project, the tag that says severe vine infestation. And the same could be true for the shrub layer or invasive trees. So there's a project for each of those and a project for severe ground level layer infestations. And in all cases, you would pick the most dominant or use a fake species if you have to.
Okay.
Now, you know, because there are so few resources available to the park authorities to take care of natural areas, a lot of this is going to be us taking care of it. So yeah, let's go for it. I think we have an opportunity. But if we don't, the problem, as many of you may have noticed, if you live near one of these little parks or big stream valleys where no one's been working, that essentially the natural resource managers have had to at least temporarily abandon those parks to the base. So it's up to the community to step forward.
Margaret, I put a question in the chat. Well, would it make sense to prompt people like in a group email where everyone's BCC'd to say, this is the right time of year to look for X and include a picture? And, you know, if you do that once a month or something, or include a couple different species, it might give more confidence to to go in there, because I know what Maddie's talking about, Madeline is talking about, because I've worked with her in like our Stream Valley, and it's a jungle in there. And right now, of course, it'd be really hard to ID some of those because it's just a mess. But it does dawn on me that, you know, if there's something like you had said, the wisteria is particularly good in April to notice. So if there were something like that where, you know, somebody could just throw out some ideas for the month, then it kind of keeps us all engaged. I'm just suggesting.
Yes, I'm certainly planning to do that anyway, just for the general public, you know, watch out for the wisteria, watch out for the lesser salinity. But we can also develop a way of doing that for the volunteers. Yes, good idea. Okay, so here's a question. For a large tract of land, like 20 acres, do you make one map or a lot of little maps for different sections? All right, so it depends on what kind of survey you're doing. If it's wisteria, you do one map for that for each infestation. That's not that big an area. It's not usually a big an area, right? If it's one of like the serious infestations we're spotting in the parks, you're going to have to divide that up into chunks. And it's just however big the chunks are that you happen to walk that day or whatever. And so you're gonna make a map around the infestations. And then in the areas that don't have infestations, you're gonna make another map that's gonna actually, instead of saying present species, it's gonna say not detected. And you're gonna map those very roughly, you know, nobody needs to go crazy over the exact boundaries of these things. The reason to do that in this project is so that somebody else doesn't come along and walk the same area trying to do what you know, survey what you already surveyed. Okay, that's using the phone app, may I record all species in both FCPA and HOA property? You certainly may. You may, but you have to start out with the web-based app. I'll take you to how you log in and get your account set up. And what guide would you recommend for learning to ID invasives? There are several. One that's in print, but you can't get it in the store, so that's not very helpful. For the vines, there are we have a lot of details of that on the Plant Nova Trees website under the Tree Rescuer program, and that's actually a really good place to start. And also, I'm remiss in not mentioning that we have training, in-person training for this, and Whitney has been leading many of these trainings, and other people in this call have been leading such trainings, where you can just go and learn with other people and do some clipping of vines while you're at it. That, of course, is absolutely the best way to learn about this.
The Blue Ridge PRISM website has a lot of information as well.
Yes, they are the preeminent ones in that regard. Good detail, and they have webinars regularly for what to look for and how to identify them. So yes, great place to get information. And once our website is up, which I expect will be within the month at most, I hope, then some of this very basic information will be there, and it will point you to the various resources. Of the list of the 10 least wanted. Yeah, so there are, we actually have a list of about 25 or so species that that anybody who's doing like management work of this is going to want to learn. So there's things like the 6 worst invasive vines and whole bunch of invasive shrubs like indeed and Japanese barberry, bush honeysuckle, and a few ground level things like English honey on the ground or Pachysandra, so it's the things that are really common and not too hard to identify with a little bit of practice and reading up about it. Those are the ones that we're going to suggest that people concentrate on unless they want to go further and to learn more about some of the more obscure species. Is there any questions?
Bamboo, I suppose, has already been kind of.
I don't think I have too much trouble identifying it, but by all means, be it, do that, and if you come across it in a park, for sure. Yeah, right. Bamboo is not something we're going to be focusing on greatly because people already have to take care of their bamboo. So that issue is sort of being solved because of the law about bamboo. Yeah, it's one of the 25 or whatever species that people can recognize. Okay, Lucy said wavy leaf, a batch cropped up in my yard. Yeah, batch cropped up in my yard and my neighbor's yard, and it's very sad to see wavy leaf. Apparently, what I have now learned is that you can try and pull it up, and if it's right there where you can get at it, you just keep pulling it and pulling it, which you definitely want to do before it goes to seed. So get it pulled up for August, I guess. Then you can get rid of it that way. But if you're talking about more in a location where you're not going to be able to get at it and come back and come back and come back, then you really want to use herbicide. That's an option. It's in the chat. If you haven't done that already, that would be great to see that.
There was a question about is Japanese knotweed on the list?
It is. It's just that, of course, is an example of something that cannot be controlled. Period.
Excuse me?
It cannot be controlled manually unless you're talking about some tiny little bit of it, young thing that just arrived. Maybe you can dig it all out. Otherwise, that's an herbicide problem. But yeah,
That's one that's really easy to identify right now. I've noticed it blooming several areas.
right. Yes. Yeah, luckily, these bad ones, most of them are quite easy to identify, and you're not going to get them too confused. The main confusion that we run into really is with grapevines versus porcelain berry. That's not easy. I have to be very careful about that because hopefully all of you are aware that the last thing we want to do is have people think that they should be taking away the native vines. Please don't do that. So most of learning vine ID, whether it's on person or online, is learning native vine ID so that you don't make that mistake.
And there are fewer of them usually in a park, I found. So if you can memorize those, pretty much everything else is fair game.
Right, I will send out the instructions for all of these things and all the links that you're going to need, and please let me know if it isn't clear, you have questions. Just really hoping people will give it a go. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.